Okay, good evening and welcome to the August 6, 2024 Hanson Select Board meeting. This meeting is being recorded by Whitman Hanson Community Access Television. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I know I say this every meeting, but we've got a jam-packed agenda.
We do.
But before we get to that, Mr. Heel, may I prevail upon you to read the announcements?
Are we skipping one?
Oh, thank you. And it may seem a little bit strange to people, but I did ask to have a moment of silence put on here for Fred Small. Fred was a school committee member and just all around a general volunteer in the community of Whitman. And the reason I have Fred on here is that he was a good partner to us here in Hanson and did a very good job. He was very fiscally prudent on the school committee, and he will be sorely missed. So if you don't mind joining me in a moment of silence for Fred. Thank you. And now, Mr. Chair.
We are looking for citizens at large to become members of the following committees: the Bylaw Committee, Cable and Internet Committee, Cultural Council, Economic Development Committee, Energy Committee, Historical Commission, Recreation Commission, Memorial Day and Patriotic Observance Committee, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Volunteer applications may be found at the town website, www.hanson-mass.gov, or by calling the Select Board's office at 781-293-2131. The state primary will be held on September 3rd, 2024 at the Hanson Middle School from 7 a.m. until 8 o'clock p.m. Early voting hours for September 3rd, 2024 state primary will be held at Hanson Town Hall as follows. On Saturday, August 24th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday, August 26th, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday, August 27th, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday, August 28th, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Thursday, August 29th, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Friday, August 30th, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The next upcoming Select Board meetings are August 27th and September 10th. Thank you.
Well done, sir. Thank you. So that brings us to the beginning of our agenda, which is we have two hearings. So let's take the West Washington one first. So we are opening hereby. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is our interrogation table. We're not really going to interrogate you, but that's what we call it.
Where were you on the night of?
Exactly. Usually there's a light that comes down with flashlight. Okay, so we are opening a hearing for a petition for the pole and wire locations. National Grid, Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, is requesting permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way: West Washington Street. Install one SO pole on West Washington Street, beginning at a point approximately 200 feet northeast of the center line of the intersection of Franklin Street and continuing approximately 0 feet in a northeast direction. Location approximately as shown on the attached plan. This notice is hereby provided by law that it be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary. Said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan filed here in marked West Washington Street, number 309-02073. Also permission to lay and maintain underground lateral cables and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. They also agreed to reserve space for one cross arm at a suitable point on each of said poles for the fire, police, telephone, and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by its exclusively for municipal purposes. Do we still have telegraph signal wires? It sounds so archaic. Do we really still have telegraph?
Oh, not that.
Yeah, okay, I was like, okay, perhaps some freshening up of your letter is in order, but anyway, we would still grant it to you. I don't know that it would be used. I need a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 And, okay. All right, great. If you don't mind introducing yourself and letting us know who you represent and telling us what we need to know about this, that would be great.
My name is Calvin Fonseca. I represent National Grid. I'm here for 2 hearings regarding the address in Washington Street and
High Street.
I see.
Yeah, the other one's high, but we're going to do West Washington now.
West Washington,
Yep.
yes. We're setting a new pole to install a 3-phase bank. The reason why we're putting that pole is to service address 1069. We're unable to put the device on the other neighboring poles, either due to already having a device or just no space for the transformer.
Okay. All right, did anybody have any questions? Okay, are there any abutters that, did you have a question? Yeah.
I think I know the answer already, but any cost to the town that we need to be aware of, anything at all? Or,
Oh, no.
no, okay.
And have you heard from any abutters?
No, I haven't.
Okay, and have we heard from anybody? Okay, and are there any abutters present? Okay. I know I'm supposed to have a pregnant pause here, but it seems as though there's not a lot of controversy.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
So, second.
Okay, roll call.
Aye.
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 And I will entertain a motion to approve the request by National Grid to locate, install one SO pole on West Washington Street beginning at 200 feet northeast of the center line of the intersection of Franklin Street and continuing approximately 0 feet in a northeast direction.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to the second one. All right, let's see.
West Washington.
This requires a bit of improv, so just bear with me. Okay, I am opening the hearing for the installation of one JO pole on 823 High Street, beginning at a point approximately 40 feet east of the center line of the intersection of Bayberry Road. National Grid is proposing to install a new stub pole, 12-84, in order to remove the guy wires attached to a dead tree. The location is shown in the attached plan. National Grid would like to be granted permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary. Said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan that's, again, filed here in marked High Street. Number 304-71467. Also, they're seeking permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. And they're also, again, reserving space for one cross arm at a suitable point on each of said poles for the fire, police, telephone, and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by it exclusively for municipal purposes. I will entertain a motion to open that hearing.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 I still want to know about who's sending the telegrams.
I don't know. But I know, inquiring, I'm picturing somebody like tapping out some little.
It just hasn't been updated for 50 years.
Well, all right. Given your experience with the internet today, it might have been a superior,
Yeah, anything you can do to fix
be a
that.
superior way of communicating.
Might-
Okay, so what would you like to tell us about the High Street location?
So, currently there's a guy wire from the pole to a dead tree, as I mentioned. We no longer do guy wires to trees due to not being standards and being a safety issue.
Okay.
So instead of anchoring all the way across the street to the tree, we're gonna install a new pole and anchor from the existing pole to the new stub pole to
Okay.
keep that pole in place.
Okay, and have you heard from anybody that abuts that, or from anybody that's concerned about you doing
When you're
that?
putting the pole, is anybody concerned?
Yeah,
So it'll be directly across the street, and wouldn't be in the cemetery, like outside the cemetery, like on the
Oh,
sidewalk.
it's near the cemetery.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's like a right now there's like a dead tree inside the cemetery, so it's like anchored all the way over there. So it's
Okay.
dead really
All right.
outside of it.
Okay. Are there any abutters that are here that would like to, okay? And did you guys have any questions?
No,
I just have a silly one.
Oh.
This is a
great.
JO pole, the other one was an SO pole, and what's the difference between a J and an S?
So JO's joint, so we share the pole with Verizon and Comcast. So pole is just electric.
It's joint or
Yeah.
sole?
Is it single?
Yeah,
ownership?
so
Okay. All right.
so you're getting
Well,
rid
now we'll sound informed at cocktail parties when we're asked about JO.
Whenever anybody
versus
asks
SO.
what
Yes.
a JO
you
pole
are
is.
getting rid of all the lines that go to trees.
yeah, so the
Because I used to have one, it was on a hickory tree in my front yard, and then when I was taking the hickory tree down, they brought it even further into my backyard to a pine tree.
oh.
It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gone.
So that's a process, you guys are
Yeah, so
identifying
it's
them?
no longer part of standards, so
Yep.
we avoid doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then as far as if people might have them, you're identifying those and kind of working your way as things maybe are in states of failure or something?
I'm
or-
not sure how the process worked with
Okay.
that, but I would say like if we see in the field, we try to pray to work.
And
But
people can always call if they've got concerns. Okay.
Do you know
Yep.
if there's a process for that? Because I am curious, because that is a huge safety issue that's pretty prevalent.
I'm not sure exactly how it goes. I know you can call in to create a work request. We could do it for you. We could call in,
Yeah.
or if we were to drive by when you see something, we could just create the work request.
Okay, because I can think of a couple locations that this might be a project that we want to take on in the near future, because I think the last storm, especially like the Monpont area,
Oh, yeah.
tons of trees came down,
Yeah.
and a lot of that area, they're all anchor points. So, I mean, luckily none of those trees came down, but, who's to say it's not going to happen in the future?
Well, we've
Yeah.
had National Grid come before, and we could have them come again to talk
Well, that's
to
what I
us
was,
about what they're
not to,
doing.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, because
Yeah.
you're obviously not here to talk about that, but I just, in case you had like a quick, a quick avenue for us to talk to somebody about
I know
that.
they have like plans about trees that they'll trim back and
Yeah.
things like that. So, if you want, we could put them on the docket.
I think we
before
should.
Get into, yeah. Can you reach out, Lisa, and see if we could get somebody to come and talk to us about what kind of, things they're doing to make sure that we have minimal loss of service when, we have catastrophic events?
And I feel like every time there's a big storm, Monpont in general goes without power for days and days. So, I mean, this big
I mean,
trees.
the post office still has a tarp over it.
Yeah.
It's crazy, so, okay, but we do digress, sorry. Okay, so, then I will entertain a motion to close, the hearing on, the 823 High Street, poll.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, great. I will entertain a motion to approve the request to install one JO pole on 823 High Street, beginning any point approximately 40 feet east of the center line of the intersection of Bayberry Road. National Grid to install new stub pole 12-84 in order to remove the guy wires attached to a dead tree.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All righty. That brings us to updating school assessment formula and developing a financial forecast discussion. And with us, we've got one of our peers from Whitman, who is a selectman in Whitman, Sean Kane. So again, do you mind taking the interrogation seat? It's such a friendly setup we've got here for people.
It's all good.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so I know that you, why don't you kind of give us a little background about maybe before you became a select person, some, like, because I think that would be helpful for people to understand why this is something that you really focus on is the, financial piece.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a number of years ago, I was on the finance committee, and something I felt strong about at that time was bringing in a financial consultant to help us with some of our forecasting and that kind of stuff. Although the town was in decent shape financially, we could see that there were some big roadblocks coming
Yep.
ahead. So we did that. You guys use John Madden now.
Yes.
He came in a number of years ago for us, and in many ways, he really did help us start to look in the right direction, start to think more strategically about what we're doing in the strategic planning that we're using to develop our budget. But obviously with this last budget cycle, it's pretty clear that there is a vulnerability with the way that we assess the school, the formula that we use to assess the school. He kind of came up with the 5% guideline, and that came out of a number of discussions that we had. We had a small working group where they had a number of meetings and they were talking about a number of different concepts, and they had kind of come about that 5%. But, you've spoken about this a number of times about the questions you have about why just 5%. And people on the school committee have mentioned that the 5% seems kind of arbitrary, so I think for all people, the 5%, without context and understanding about a better understanding of how that was developed, it seems like it's lacking a little bit. And again, I think we felt that this last budget cycle. So to me, although we've made progress in this area with strategic planning, I think developing a new formula for school assessment, I think, is appropriate. I do have one tonight that I'd like to share, but it's by no means the end-all be-all. It's just kind of the start of a conversation. I thought it'd be nice to bring you guys in and get some feedback, and hopefully I'll be on the agenda, the school committee, either in August or in most likely September.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming, Sean, and we do appreciate the ongoing effort for a partnership, and we certainly have been trying to be good partners. I feel like we have been good partners, and we've got some concerns about the way things went down, and I know you guys had a different result in Whitman from your town meeting, but we ended up having to reduce people's hours, and that's on top of the statutory method that we're still railing from. So the feeling of partnership is starting to wane. And we're trying to, I am like the eternal optimist, constantly trying to be like, no, we really should keep trying. Even I'm starting to go like, okay, maybe read the room here. So I think maybe if we focus on numbers and not on personalities and try to just focus on the facts, I'm hoping there'll be more clarity on all sides.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the objectives that I shared with our board for doing this, for me, I think we want to be transparent. We want the school assessment formula that we use, we want it to be clearly defined, and we want it to be easy to understand. I think that it's really important for the public that they can see what we're doing from the beginning, so it's not like things are being done behind closed doors. It's easy for them to understand, and it's kind of explicit. It's out there for everybody to see.
Yeah.
I also think that it needs to be fair for all parties involved. That was a major issue. The 5% in some ways, it's funny, like if we had very little revenue, say, 5% seems overly generous to the school. And if we have a good amount of revenue in a particular year, then from their point of view, 5% seems like it's lacking. So whatever formula we develop, I think all parties involved need to feel like, we're going to be taken care of. We can't all be going to the schools, they can't all be going to the town departments, so however it's defined, it needs to be obvious that it's fair. So I think that's a key piece. And the third piece for me, I think that separates this from the 5%, is that it should be based on current data, like responsive to current data. Because why would the 5% seem to be stagnant for all years when, the data that you're analyzing is different from year to year? So why would it just be 5%? So I think a formula that accounts for and is responsive to obtaining, the new information in front of you is appropriate.
I think that's definitely true. I will say this year, on the heels of the Madden report and us being armed with that data, although it might have been a bit stale, it was really what we had, and it was the freshest data that we had, made us feel confident that we could say 5% is what we can afford. And we started that conversation early, really early. And we told all of the departments, this is where we're at. You guys need to hold the line. Our town departments didn't get 5%. We weren't giving them a 5% increase, but we recognized that there were increased costs for the schools. And so we were trying to be sensitive to that. And as I said, we were armed with the, with the Madden report. And what ended up really being a bummer was that despite the fact that we were so consistent and so clear, like we shouted it from the rooftop, this is all we can afford, we don't have any more money, this is it, we're stretching, didn't matter. So I think, I know you're not here to solve the relationship problems, but I think it's a two-part thing. I think the numbers are important, and I think we've got to do better with communication.
I agree, and we felt a lot of that as well. And I think we could develop a formula that would just help people understand why the number that we propose is actually what we can afford, especially if we take an override off the table. We're kind of talking about a zero-sum game. What we give to one department, we must take from others.
Correct.
So that's where the fairness comes in. Where if it's just like a blanket 5%, I don't think people quite understand, like, well, what's the difference if it's a little bit more or a little bit less, Whereas I think if we clearly define the formula a little bit more precisely, I think people will understand that if we give to one, we must take from the others. And that's where the inequity comes in.
Yeah. Well put. Well said.
And in the beginning, a few of us didn't even really understand the 5%. There was a 3.8 number thrown out. And a few of us, including me, reluctantly agreed to go up to the 5%, but not all of us agree with even the 5%. That's still more than we can afford. The 3.8% is really close to a minimum.
That's true, and I don't want to totally divert, because I know Sean's got something to present, but one of the things that Jeff Simonek mentioned was that although we were saying 5, it's on only a portion of the budget, so it's not like you take the whole school budget and you're giving them 5% more. It's only on the operational assessment. So that's an important piece to appreciate too. So the reason I mention that is when you do that, you do get closer and perhaps even lower than the amount you thought we were giving them.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I just briefly describe? I know
Go for it. Yeah,
just briefly
go for it.
describe the proposed
Yeah.
assessment change. Step one, when I think it's important that I know you guys have been doing this and we've been trying to get better at this is projecting revenue. So we spend a lot of time like really getting down and estimating our local receipts and excise tax and all that stuff so that we can dial in on what our revenue is going to be in a particular year. Because obviously if we don't have the money, we can't spend the money.
Right.
So really dialing in on that revenue, I think, is a critical first step. We also have financial policy that we formally, accepted as a Board of Selectmen, and that's also helpful, I think, for some people to know if they want to see what's the policy behind how we project revenue, they can kind of read through that. The second step, I think, would be to calculate 2.5% across the board. So if you project your revenue, and then you calculate 2.5% across the board, then you could say, if there's a surplus of money after there's 2.5%, then you can divvy up that money amongst the departments in the schools. And if there's not a surplus of money, if there's a deficit, then the same thing, that you would see how you would rectify this. And the way that I'm proposing that you would, if there was a surplus of money, that you would divvy it up is based on the general fund expenditures that you currently use. So this is on the Department of Revenue or the Department of Local Services. You can look, and I think Mr. Madden actually went over it now that I'm thinking about it. How much money in your budget do you spend towards education?
Yes.
And Whitman and Hanson are very close. I think you're just about 50%. We're just below 50%, the amount of money in your budget proportionally that you spend towards education. So in that case, if you had $200,000 in surplus revenue over and above the 2.5%, then $100,000 would go to the school, $100,000 would go to the town. And that way you could see that it's proportional, it seems fair. At least there's some sort of gauge to see how is it fair or not. There's definitely some subjectivity in this. How you calculate 2.5%, for instance, it's not exactly a science, Richard is here, and I know that it's in many ways why we hire a town administrator to make some difficult decisions about how you calculate, but when Mr. Stanbrook would would do his forecasting with the school. One thing I would appreciate is that when he did calculate his budget, he would put in some assumptions so you could see this is how we calculated the numbers.
Yeah.
Again, I think that would speak to the transparency piece, so that any way that we can remove, not take away discretion, but remove like the lack of transparency or perceived lack of transparency, and show people, listen, this is how we'll calculate it, so that you can see. I think that'd be helpful.
Okay. Mr. Kintroff, did you have any thoughts? I can see you looking extremely pensive back there.
You know what I'm talking about. If they ever agreed to this, it would make budget for them a lot easier. The only thing I would mention, though, is, as far as like the town budgets go, like 2.5% of the departments, we have to do it on the aggregate, because some costs are more than 2.5%. Like, I know our retirement assessment, we're gonna bang out 9-10% for the next 3 to 4 years, and that's a big number. Health insurance inflation is gonna be more than 2.5%. So we'll still have to squeeze, if we're the state in the aggregate 2.5%, for our budget. The total's gonna be 2.5%, but some of the budgets will have to give more and less. But I love it. It's simple, easy to understand. I have some skepticism that the schools would go along with this, but if they did, it would be great. And that's what we have with Sean here. He's developed a relationship and just put it out there. I think what he's doing is great.
Well, Sean, when you go to the school committee, could you let us know? Because perhaps there'd be power in numbers and we could support you by attending and just showing that we're, we would like it to take this direction too.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd love to get their feedback, and then from there, develop a small working group with people kind of in the know that could kind of hash out some of the details, because there are nuances to the budget that are hard to understand. Say trash, for instance. Trash on one side of the budget with your expenditure might go up in Whitman, but on the other side, we just increase our billing as well. So it's not just simply apples to apples, so some of those nuances would have to be kind of worked out. But I think if there was a small working group that included the school and Whitman and Hanson, I'm optimistic that we could come up with some sort of formula and then bring it back to everybody.
I like that because I think part of, the communication relationship building is more clarity into what we're each spending money on. And again, not that we want to micromanage each other, that's not what it's about, but we just need a sanity check because, if we've got to tell certain departments they're going to take a hit, we need to appreciate why and, where is that money going instead? So that we've got a holistic view of the budget. And I think that that's missing because we each kind of have our little swim lanes and we know what we're doing, but we're not necessarily sure what the other guys are doing, so. Yeah.
I'd like to echo,
Yes.
though, what Eric said, is I would really appreciate if the school committee would actually listen to what we say. And I so far have not seen any evidence of that. They're gonna have to show me that they're actually gonna work with us, because they haven't worked with us.
I totally feel that, and I understand, and I think that's why I had mentioned when Mr. Kane goes there, maybe we could,
It's always on a Wednesday.
I know it is, but, well, you could be there in spirit. We can
be there in spirit.
FaceTime you in and you can feel like you're there. But
Would cut out.
yeah, we have to keep trying. We can't, really, the alternative is bleak, so, yeah, I think that's great.
So you've always been a fantastic partner. I think this is great. You've always been proactive. You've always tried to help. You're one of the only few people that I truly can say really takes themselves out of something and tries to find a solution-focused way around things. I think one of the things that I'm struggling with that I think a lot of folks here can appreciate is the echoing of just like if people want to get the schools funded, the one thing that keeps getting repeated over and over and over again is where is the money going? Whether it's 2.5%, 1%, 10%, doesn't matter where it is. Time and time again, all I hear, whether it be on this board or just constituents just advocating for themselves. And I got kids in the schools, obviously, but their friends' parents, every time there's a sleepover or something, they knock on the door, they talk to me about it. There's no one that doesn't support the schools. They just don't know where their money is going because they're not seeing it. And I understand there's a level of transparency, so but it's not in your face, and arguably it's not to the level of being able to get confidence from people that you're asking to open their pocketbooks and their wallets to fund additionally. So any type of plan, I do think it goes beyond what a formula. And it needs to have an operational system attached to it that somehow shows where this money is going. Otherwise, the answer is always going to be, I don't have enough information, so therefore we're not going to fund it. And then, so I don't know, in the conversation, in the working group, and I love all of this, I think this is a great start. It's more along the lines of how do we get how does the school committee get the information out so that people have enough time to digest it?
And I would piggyback on that because, this has not been a hobby of mine, but an interest of mine for a number of years. I would challenge people who are watching right now or maybe reading about this and say, do some of the research on your own. There's incredible power in doing that. The state does make it easier for people to see how numbers are being dispersed in a regional school district. You can go on the Department of Ed, DESE, and you can look up some numbers and you can compare them to other districts and you can do some good research on your own. You can then take some of those questions, like you have a targeted question, and you can bring it to a school committee member, and they can bring it to the administration and bring you back some answers. Like, I know for me, when I'm having a good conversation with somebody, wherever it is, on the soccer field or in a coffee shop, I always say, listen, I found that when I started doing research and I started to ask hard questions, people started answering me. And in many ways, it wasn't that people were being deceptive. It was almost like sometimes people in the know or just in the work are so in the numbers, they kind of assume that people just know or they have access. They didn't realize that, oh, yeah, it's right here, So I've developed some pretty good relationships with people who don't mind when I ask some hard questions and they provide me with information. It does help me better understand the budget. So that would be my challenge. I think I want to work with the school committee and I want to develop, budget groups. I want more transparency, but also for people who are on the fringe, I'd ask them to step in, play a bigger role, show up at more meetings, ask some more hard questions. We need people to go beyond just the introductory understanding of the budget to get to more advanced levels, because I think that helps everybody. Personally.
No, I'm looking at the assessed formula, and I'm looking at it like, it is so simple, and so like, duh, you get 22.5%, and that's 2.5% is 2.5%, and that's what we've discussed in the past. But then we were just discussing it, and it was mentioned that, well, we'll have to do 2.5%, but take out insurance and take out retirement. But to me, 2.5% means 2.5%. So if two things are more than 2.5%, something else needs to be less than 2.5%.
I think that's why Mr. Kinshirf was mentioning.
To make the total 2.5. So you don't take the insurance and the retirement out and then everything else is 2.5%. I'm thinking the whole bucket is 2.5%, and therefore taxes will not go up more than 2.5%. So I just want to, but this, I'm looking at it, it's like, just makes almost too much sense. Just looking at it as a simple one page, not even a little tiny font. It's a
couple of things that will probably come up that I've already got some feedback on. Your 50% goes towards education, but that also includes like a technical school or GAGI or something. So that's all of your education, not just Whitman Hanson. Some of those costs aren't very controllable.
No.
So those costs can go up, because say there's an increase in enrollment, you can see a 10% increase, in certain years. And it's hard to, how are we going to rectify that? Those are some of the discussions that are going to have to be had. If there's uncontrollable costs in education one way, is it fair to say that this is now controllable? So that we're definitely going to have to talk about that.
Definitely. And we are seeing that with, Bristol Egg, all of that. You just never know from year to year when we might see a spike in, Did anybody else have any questions for Mr. King? All right, well, I thank you for crossing the town line and coming to talk to us. Appreciate it. Yes, if you can just state your name. Yep.
Al Sedgwick from High Street. When you started, it sort of made sense. And 2.5% is the rule of Massachusetts, correct?
Yep.
So why do we talk about 5? We can't talk about 5. We've got to talk about 2.5. And that's the number. It should be as simple as that. There should be no more discussion about it. It's 2.5. So if something's up 10, like you said, that means something else has to go down. And it's simple as that. It shouldn't be, oh, well, we've got to do an override. No, it's 2.5.
Sure.
And I'd love to know, and again, maybe this is my fault for not digging into it more. But like, how many students do we have now versus last year? How many students should we have? All these things, it has to be, the total is 2.5. And that's it. It should be simple. Then there's no arguments like we went through this year. Like we send it to them, they send it back. We send it to them, they send it back. We vote on it 14 times until they get the answer they want. That's what happened. So that's really frustrating from looking at the law that was passed, I don't know how many years ago, it's a 2.5.
It
That's
wasn't.
the number.
Well,
It's no more.
and the other problem too, that the biggest elephant in the room for me is the assessment amounts from town to town. Because you have more business than we do, with more students, your tax, you have less tax money going to each student, where we have no business and lots of taxpayers, we have more tax money. That's not equitable at all. It's not fair, it's not right, and that's the state doing it to us. So people have to understand that. This is not the Whitman-Hanson School Committee doing it to us. This is the state doing it to us. And the fact of the matter is that we have a large population of elders in this town. Now, I'm not saying that I'm an angel or anything, but I put 2 kids through Whitman-Hanson all the way through. I've paid my taxes, paid my taxes, paid my taxes, and have many people my age. And we don't have any kids in the school anymore. They're done. They've been done for 20, 30 years. And it's very frustrating to be told, well, too bad, you just have to eat it. We can't eat it. We can't. So this is what has to change, is that assessment coming down from the state. I know why they did it. That has to change. I don't know how we get that to change, but it's got to go back to the way it was. We need to be paying for the students that we have. Just the students that we have, not everybody else's students. Sorry, and that's my soapbox. That's my hill I'll die on.
But it goes back,
That's the statutory versus.
Yeah, it is. It's not the Whitman-Hanson School Committee's fault. They have other faults, but that's not their fault, it's the state.
The surplus above 2.5% would be like with new growth, or if your revenue projections with, say, meals tax or excise tax, those things are above what you are coming in higher than when you thought.
You mean the revenue's higher? Or
So the revenue.
Yes, yeah,
So
new growth.
that's where you would have some surplus funds.
So no
The
surplus.
2.5% is on the tax bill, right? Like individual tax bill
Correct, yeah.
per.
The
Yes.
surplus funds above 2.5 or whatever should be put away. Is that a crazy idea?
It's not a crazy idea, but,
I'm thinking business. I was a business.
I get that, and I work in private sector,
ITT
yeah.
told me that you can't raise your cost more than 3%, whatever that was. I didn't say, oh, well, we had some problems, so it's gonna be 5.
Well, you might raise more revenue to get to pay something else. You might, you know what I mean? The 2.5% is supposed to be more on the property tax for individuals.
My budget was higher than 3%.
Yeah.
So, and this is where we've got to get to. The school committee has to do the same thing. We can't spend more than 2.5% up than what we spent last year. Simple as that. And if it's higher, all right, what are we gonna cut?
but
And you're gonna have to cut something.
I think it keeps coming back to the same thing though, because I'm gonna keep saying this all year long. All these conversations happen here, and we don't, there's nothing we can do about it. It's a school committee problem, So even the fact that you're here, we're partnering. You have the best formula in the world, have all the problems solved, present it alongside all of us, and we can go there, and they could just say no, and then do whatever they want anyways. It literally is the school committee. So I agree that with Ann, that, the state gives us an assessment, but the school committee presents us the assessment. They ask us for the money. So the only way that you can get people to live within that 2% is you elect people that are gonna do that. It's not a Whitman versus Hanson thing. It never was.
No,
You elect.
shouldn't
Saying that at all.
No, I'm just saying for the people that, the 5 or 6 people that are watching this, but the idea is, if you want someone to present you a 2.5% every year budget, then you have to ask them in May, are you going to present us if we elect you with 2.5%? And if the answer is yes, and that's what you want to do, then you vote them in. And if they say no, then you don't. But if you want them to have more flexibility, then you vote somebody that wants more flexibility. But that's the most important part of elections, especially as we're talking about this every single year. You got to remember, it's not, and again, I'm not one way or another on this. I go with whatever the people say, but we had 4 people on that going back to what you ping-pong it back and forth. Those were all unanimous votes, except for our late Fred Small. He was the only one that was a dissenting vote. The only one. Yeah. So if you actually, that's where it comes down to. We can have the same conversation, and I'm not saying that you have the conversation here, because people watch this and they get educated here. But every single time, the answer is going to be exactly the same for the next 4 years or however the election, pans itself out. Ask them. Would you support a 2.5% over, 2.5% budget increase only? Anything over that, and then you get your answer. Watch the debate shows, watch YouTube. Now, whether or not they stay to that's a different thing, but you have to, that's an important question.
Yep.
I think, sorry, what else going?
Yeah.
To be fair, they're on the school committee because they're advocating for educational.
Mm-hmm.
They're not charged with, controlling the budget or paying to make roll the budget,
Right.
So I think to be fair to the people in town, they need to hear the educational reasons.
Yeah.
They also need to hear some sound reasons about the budget, and I think that's the best we can do.
Yeah, they have to be informed, because I, as a special educator, I'm telling you, the special education costs alone are astronomical, and those are what we would consider to be unfunded mandates. You don't get to choose whether or not you fund them. You don't. So, there are things in the budget.
And unpredictable.
Oh, they're 100% unpredictable. Forget about all the other nuances of it. Just a huge proportion of the budget is special education.
Yep.
So a lot of these things that we think are like extras or whatever that we can just remove, you cannot remove them. You never could remove them. You will never be able to remove them. So it really just comes down to like elections. Just ask the right questions, get informed, put the people in there, and then just try to. Again, this is why it come full circle. This is why I think this is important, because we should be starting the conversation now. Otherwise, every single budget season, like the 2 months into it, 2 months isn't enough time to be talking about this stuff. This is great.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, guys.
Yes,
We really appreciate
let us
it.
know when you're going to be there.
Thanks.
We'd love-
Yeah, let us know. Yeah,
Take care.
thank you.
Thanks for
All right, that brings us to Mass Department of Fish and Game and Light Control Property. And I think we've got Joan Pierce with us. Great, thank you, Joan. We're thrilled to have you here. Big fan of Burridge, love it, I'm there every day. I think it's a jewel, and I feel so lucky that we've got it in our little town, at least a good part of it. Miss Green, did you want to queue up?
Yes.
Joan, introduce her. I know who she is, but if you want to introduce her.
So, as we all know, the light control property, also known as 100 Hawks Ave, which abuts the Burridge, was gifted to the town, 2009, I'm sorry, the exact date escapes me. It was gifted to the town, 9.6 acres, I believe, was gifted to the town. There's restrictions on the deed that do not allow the town to do a whole lot with the property. You can't put housing, schools, hospitals, any kind of childcare facilities. Basically, you can't do anything that's going to involve getting into the ground.
Yep.
Things like, so, it's been a work in progress to identify, getting grants to try and identify things like that. Town meeting vote a few years back gave the the select board, the authority to enter into a lease for a portion of the light control property, which includes the 2 large buildings that are on that property, the warehouse style. Ms. Pierce approached me. We had a conversation, a couple years ago?
Yeah.
As we walked the Burridge, and she really introduced me to the Burridge. And we talked about the light control property, and she did mention back then that, basically, Department of Fish and Game would be interested in acquiring a portion of that property. But then, because there's committee deadlines and schedules and things like that, it kind of left by the wayside. Well, just recently, she had approached me with an idea and a direction of the state to potentially acquire the entire light control property from the town. She has prepared a letter. We have maps that she has prepared. And with that being said, I will turn the conversation over to Ms. Pierce so she can really talk with the board a little bit more on the state's interest in that property.
Well, thank you. I'm Joan Pierce, and I work for the Massachusetts Fish and Game out of our Buzzards Bay office, which is where our office is for the Southeast District of Massachusetts. And I've been working in our land acquisition program for about 25 years. I was here just a couple of years when we acquired Burridge from Northland Cranberries. And the first page of the letter is really talking about the history and the importance of the Burridge Pond Wildlife Management Area. And then the second page, I get into really the reason why I'm here. We are working with the town, I believe the select board is aware of this, to acquire some other property that is still owned by, it's now called Hubble. Hubble indirectly acquired light control. And that should be a map that says close up. And you can see a diagonal line on that map, hopefully. My maps, I have so many maps, I change them all the time. And this, the piece of property, the big piece of property is about 87 acres. And we're proposing that that property be split along the diagonal line. And we're hoping that the town is able to acquire, I call it the western 45 acres, and sometimes Bill calls it the northern 45 acres, but it's the same piece of property. And then Fish and Game would acquire the 41 acres that's right behind what you call the light control property, the town-owned property that they got from light control a few years ago. Fish and Game is also in the process, we hope, of acquiring the little square that's the easternmost property, and it's 1.6 acres, and it's right, my finger is over it, but can you see on the, do I have a label that says 1.6?
Yep.
Okay. And so we want to acquire that property as well. Hubble wants to get rid of the property that it owns in Massachusetts, right here. They don't want to own it anymore. It doesn't do them any good. They've gone through this extensive cleanup with DEP. They want out. Now, the one piece of property that they're still going to retain, at least for a while, has 7.6 acre label. They still have some groundwater monitoring that they have to do for DEP. We have said to the representative of Hubble, when you get done with your groundwater monitoring, talk to us because we would like to pick that piece of property up also. And because, as you can see, well, one from this, the close-up map, but also the other plan that shows most of Burridge, but not all, the Hubble property is really, really important for how we maintain the property. We want to have no conflicting uses abutting the property. This is a very valuable WMA, wildlife management area. So we do hope that we will be successful. We are having the title done now on the 87-acre property. We'll have it certified to both us and to the town, because you need to have a title certification anyway for you to know that Hubble has clear title. We're also having the title done on the 1.63-acre parcel. We are having our appraisal done on the two parts that we are going to be acquiring. But while we're talking about the Hubble property, the town, and I don't live in town, but I talk to people on occasion, we are concerned about what might happen with the town property. And so I felt that now was a good time to at least start the conversation and say, listen, Fish and Game would really like to own the town property so that this whole strip along the northern part of Burridge, it's all gonna be open space. So, as part of, the town property has, what is now the town property, this 9.6 or 9.5 acres, has two large buildings.
Yes.
And we are proposing, and this is me talking right now. I have a committee that has to approve everything ultimately, and this is the proposal, depending on your reaction, that I would bring to my committee at some point in September, for example, that's when our next meeting is, that we would pay to take down those buildings. And we have gotten a very preliminary estimate. It's over $400,000 to take down the buildings. We don't want the buildings. We do have a building at Burridge where we have tractors.
Yes. Lots of other choice, too. Yeah.
Probably. I've not been in it.
Oh, you do? Yep.
Anyway, but other than a building that we are actively using, we don't want buildings on the property. They attract vandalism and whatnot, and we acquire property for wildlife habitat. We don't acquire property for buildings. So we would like to have the buildings removed, and we would take on that responsibility if we are able to acquire the property from the town.
And Ms. Green has informed you that we did have a test pit there. So originally, when the property was gifted to us, there was a notion that perhaps it could be used for our highway folks who really need to have a better home. And then there were questions about, was there still contamination potentially there, even though some areas had gotten a clean bill of health. We know the entire property hadn't gotten a clean bill of health, and those of us who were jaded doubted whether the entire property had been cleaned. And then we ran into some questions about, is that really a suitable location for a highway building? I know fairly recently, you folks had written a letter like, no, we really would not consider that an ideal scenario since it's proximity to wetlands. If anything were to go south, it really would be a nightmare. And I appreciate that. That sort of supported what our thought process was anyway. We also had our town planner chime in and say, that would be almost insane to have salt in highway, over where you've got to cross train tracks. It's not even in the epicenter of town. It would be a nightmare. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So for a variety of reasons, it seems that its fate as a potential highway location is not going to not to come to fruition. And we were warned at the time that we were gifted those buildings that if they were not inhabited quickly, their shelf life would erode rapidly, and that there would be deterioration, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we've seen that has been the case. I think I'm intrigued with this concept. I think, of course, not to be impolite, but the money really needs to be talked about. So I would assume that the process for determining that, we would get a third party who's an expert in this type of an appraisal, who would bring the appraisal to us, and then we'd say that seems reasonable because, we do need to have some kind of financial, one of the reasons it was accepted was because people thought it would be a boon, and they were thinking it's coming off of the tax rolls, but at least we'd be getting something in return, which would be two salvageable buildings that we could use for the town.
Yeah.
So
the money is always a delicate issue. There's the issue, though, of the existing contamination, which we don't know yet. We're going to have conversations.
Yep.
What is it going to take to remediate that if it needs to? So I don't want to talk too much in detail about money because that's going to be a factor. The problem, though, is that we are going to be paying to take down the buildings, which is a big cost. And it's almost, not quite, but the preliminary estimate is almost equal to the assessed value for the piece of property. So I do want to emphasize that I'm not here to tell you that this is going to be a windfall for the town.
I don't think we're looking for a windfall, but if I'm reading between the lines, and what I think I hear you're saying, which is the cost to take it down and potentially to mitigate is going to be large, and that is going to dramatically impact whether the town gets any remuneration, I can assure you we're not in a financial position to make that type of a decision. We're just not. We're looking at an override. We've got all kinds of competing demands. So I can't even tell you how much it pains me to say that out loud because I love Burridge. And like I said, I'm there like at least 5 out of 7 days of the week, sometimes 7 out of 7. So, you know, I know we'll leave those final determinations and discussions, but something else to keep in mind is, you know, in terms of purchasing some of these properties, our town meeting in May voted against being an MBTA community. So some of the grant money that otherwise would be available to us to purchase open space will not be available to us. So we will have to see if there are other sources. I'm not sure if the state's going to clap back on our community preservation match as one of the other things, because they're clapping back on a lot of things. That we just found out about the library, being clapped back on, which wasn't even one of the 13 grants or the original 3 grants that they listed, but now it just seems like the floodgates are opening and they're just like, however they can penalize towns who aren't MBTA community towns, they are seeking those ways. So I mention that because not only would we be looking for some remuneration and that amount TBD, and again, to be left to, whatever, for Lisa to come back to us after you guys have talked and done, due diligence, but as far as the purchase of that particular piece of property, I don't know where that money will come from. I'm not, of the open space piece.
I didn't see that we were going to be spending.
She just mentioned that,
No,
yes, the conservation is working on, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so there's there's a lot of movement.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement. The other thing, it said we'd be responsible for the mitigation of any contamination. I mean, that, as Laura just got done saying, we don't have the money to do that. And we're probably not going to be able to get any grants to fix it. Do we? Do we have grant money available?
So we have submitted the application to the One Stop for Growth for the brownfields assessment cleanup. Okay. We're still waiting on that. We will be having conversation with Tracy Costa, who was the LSP, who conducted the brownfields. She did mention that if the One Stop for Growth program, if we are not awarded money there, she is aware of the DEP does have some funds available that towns, that we may be able to request for help with cleaning that up. And Ms. Pierce she is aware of the contamination that was found. We are still waiting for the final report on that, but they are aware. They do have an idea of where the contamination is. So
just to clarify, even if we are awarded the One Stop, that is an MBTA community-related grant. Mm-hmm. And so unless we're able to do remediation, which would be an amazing feat, to pull off remediation by the end of this year, because it all has to be done by 2024, at which point we are no longer compliant, I just don't see One Stop as being our answer for mitigating. So I think we probably need to talk to Tracy about prioritizing the DEP money.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, too, just to remember, because we did do the brownfield assessment with a One Stop grant, which is $100,000, we would have to pay back the state $100,000 if we were to make more than $100,000 on that property in any type of monetary purchase or anything like that.
That's just a really silly question. I mean this with all due respect, but why are we talking about this? Like, what is the gain here? What are we getting? And I'm all for, fish and game. I'm avid hunter forever. I love beautification and all that stuff, but what is the actual, why are we talking about this?
Can I? Well, one is that we, Fish and Game, we want to have protected all of the abutting property on the north end of Burridge. at some point, something's gonna happen with the town property. I have no idea what it is, but we're nervous about it. And so we would like to have that nailed down, taken care of, and so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay.
And can you remind me, this has to go to town meeting anyway, right?
It does have to go to town meeting, yes.
What are we nervous about?
I'm nervous.
I'm not the one who's nervous. She's saying she's nervous.
No, yeah.
Mass Wildlife and Fisheries is nervous.
Yeah.
I don't know, you'd have to ask her what she's nervous
Well,
about.
through you, what are you nervous about?
That I have no idea. At some point, the property, I'm concerned, is gonna be used for something. There are two big buildings there. There's been proposals for the highway, and that didn't work out. The town, I mean, it's just, things change. And at some point, someone's gonna come in and wanna use that piece of property. And it may be a use that is really not something that we wanna have next to Burridge.
So if that's the case, walk me through this, because I don't know, I'm very naive to this. So one of the things that Hanson citizens are really meticulous and I think, and right for thinking is, we want to be in charge of our own stuff. And one of the reasons why we're not going along with this MBTA thing is because the state's telling us we have to do stuff with our land that we just don't want to do. So if we give this land, because I mean, even I understand that it's minimum cost and you're trying to offset the cost with the losses of so it's going to be we're not getting anything. Like we're losing, are we, this is a loaded question, so I don't, this is not the right way to say it, but are we just giving you the land and we just lose control? You get to decide what happens, and then it's Hanson, but it's not Hanson land, right?
Once it becomes, if it becomes owned by Fish and Game.
Yeah.
We take down the buildings, and then the property is gonna be managed as more open space.
Yeah, but you're doing us a favor, but then you're offsetting that cost by telling us we're not getting any money. So it's not really, you're not doing it for us, you're just taking the money that you would have paid us to do something else.
Take down the buildings, for one.
Well, we could take it down, right?
Well, if you've got the money to take it down.
That's why I said earlier, Joe, I feel uncomfortable, but I'll wait until the facts are all presented as far as remuneration, but I feel uncomfortable with the direction that it's taking, because I think that I know that people are gonna be outraged if we get no money for this property.
Well, let's say we get money. I mean, what's our soul worth? I don't understand, like, what are we getting from this? I don't understand what we're getting. Like, what is it? Do we have anybody here that can speak to this? Is there anybody that can kind of speak from a conservation?
You're not getting anything. Is the land going to still be able to be used for what it's being used for right now, hunting or whatever?
Yes,
It's
it's
being-
just gonna be expanded.
It's being
The
used for
amount
that
of-
anyway.
of
Yeah, and
property.
I would like to see.
You're just protecting the land. That's basically all you're doing.
Right, and
You're just setting it up so that nothing can be done with it.
Right.
And it's going to stay.
I would like to see this done without any cost to the town of Hanson.
Sure.
That's what I want to see, at a minimum. I mean, we were gifted the land. We did spend how many $100,000 on plans for a highway?
400 something.
Yeah, so
Feasibility
studies.
study.
Oh, yeah, they did a huge, I think, wasn't it 500,000? Damn near,
Yeah.
along with the plans?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're out that money. We're not out anything other than that.
However, that said, I will say that Mr. DeFrayis has mentioned that the feasibility study plans could be
Yeah, they can
leveraged
be-
for
they-
different
yes,
locations.
Yes, they can
so,
be, but
Yeah,
be that as it may, they're
Yeah.
still, they came out of that property.
yes.
And we've also discussed at various meetings using that for something else, using it for
Some
dry
kind of,
storage or something.
or leasing it and having some type of
Right.
revenue.
Yeah, so there are
hasn't
other
seen it
options
come
that'll
to
actually
fruition.
benefit the town.
Yeah, I guess for me, I just have to see more of what it is, because again, I'm all for this. I'm all for fish and game and beautification and maintenance. It's land that I use and I believe in, and I want to see it expanded, but it's juxtaposed with Hanson being in charge of the flexibility of its own land, and you only have so much. We're a small town. Like, so I just need to see more, and I don't know what the benefit is yet. So I'd like to see what that benefit is.
Okay,
I hope that makes sense, and it's not I hope that you're taking it in the way that, I
absolutely.
just need more information.
But that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
To hear your concerns about what the proposal is. We don't have hard numbers for the demolition, but we've gotten an estimate, and it's high. So.
That doesn't surprise
Demo,
us. Yeah.
demo company.
That doesn't surprise us. Unfortunately, we
We've done
have
this.
some experience with demo in the town.
If people think it's valuable
Yeah.
to demo it, they'll pony up the money to demo it. We'll find a way to do it. That's not, I feel like the cost is only one dimension of a conversation. If people feel like it's worth it, they'll spend the money on it. So I just need more info.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I would also argue that we're not requiring you to take those buildings down. That's a choice that you guys are making, you know? Like, that's part of what that's what we were gifted. Those buildings were on there, and so like, you know, the expectation that somehow the value of that property is going to be offset by the cost of what you're choosing to do with the property. That, to me, like, coming from a real estate perspective, that would be very odd to me. Like, if I sold somebody a house on a piece of property and they just didn't happen to like the house and they were going to tear it down, I'm not going to decrease what I'm charging that person who's buying the house. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's not apples to apples, but it is, you know, like.
Oranges.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know, kumquats to,
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. I don't.
I'll give you that.
It's some fruit analogy, but it's jumped the track. But, so, you know, and again, we're not trying to give you a hard time. And I think the devil's going to be in the details, literally, on this. You know, what are the dollar amounts? To Mr. Weeks's point, what benefits do you see, you know, Hanson having, are there jobs that are going to be created? Are there, you know, is that work going to be going preferentially to people in Hanson for the mitigation or the da-da-da? I don't know. I'm making these things up, but I'm just saying, like, are there some things that, you know, what's in it for us type of thing?
Absolutely.
You know?
No, that's fine.
Just one second. Did anybody else anybody else have, okay. Mr. Stepan, yeah.
I'll say that, High Street. Tying on to what Joe was saying, if, let's say we did this, and we got 500 grand, and they took care of all the buildings, is there a guarantee that the land will stay as
Yes.
Yes.
wetlands and?
Yeah, they'd put it into into a deed restriction with,
That
yeah.
can't be changed by the state?
Well, I mean, I can't say it couldn't be changed by the state.
The state
Yeah.
doesn't generally do that.
I mean, I guess you could do that to Burridge, really.
These days,
I know.
they
Yeah.
want to control every inch of what we do.
Right.
From the state, no offense.
That's okay.
But they do. So if they can't get the housing and the MBTA thing, will they convert this to some way they can use it for housing?
No.
Well, they do it now with those buildings, which would be a abysmal failure, but anyway,
Yeah,
but,
they can't do any
Yeah.
septic, they can't do any
No.
water, they can't do anything like
Yeah.
that there.
It's a concern.
They can't.
no, it's valid. I mean, technically, I mean, the conservation deed restrictions, we have a number of them on properties throughout town. I guess you could have the state intervene, but doesn't it take town meeting to remove that deed restriction?
But if it's owned by them,
If it's owned by
not-
them,
it's not-
that's my point. If the state owns it, then can they decide what's to be done with it?
Okay, so,
Yes.
so we are a small part, a very specific small part of the state, Massachusetts Fish and Game. And when we acquire a piece of property, it has to stay permanent, open space, wildlife habitat. We cannot decide that it's gonna become housing or used for a highway barn or anything else.
No, I know you can't, but
Right.
if the government voted on it, they passed a law that they decided they're gonna change it into a housing situation.
Could they change the zoning?
Could they change the zoning? Because they talked about changing zoning in town.
It has nothing to do with zoning. Okay. No, this is what our mission is. This is what we are given funding for. Could something be changed? There's always, yeah. But it takes 2/3 majority vote yes, of both houses of the legislature.
Take control.
That's right. But, and then there has to be mitigation, and you have to provide replacement property that's in excess, not only acres, but also the value. So it is extremely.
Quite honestly, there's already 1,600 acres there. This is a drop in the bucket for the, they've got 1,600 acres already. If they wanted to convert it, they could do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, this is, it just, I can't say never, because there's probably a situation, but that's what we are giving them funds for, is to provide permanent open space. And it's called Article 97, which is an amendment to the state constitution that says for a town, any government entity that buys a piece of property for protection of natural resources, if you change the use, if someone proposes to change the use or change the ownership, any interest in the property, you have to go through the legislature, and there has to be, you know, this 2/3 majority vote and all of these other things that go. Well, it depends, but.
I don't think there's any precedence for conservation property at all ever being,
Can I,
you know,
just, you know,
But that's,
we're in the environment right now where a lot of us do not trust anything to do with government. But I will make this point. Not every aspect of government is bad. And I think that there's little corners of the government.
You're speaking to the microphone
I'm
right
speaking
now?
into the microphone right now. There are
All right.
little corners of the government that are doing a good thing. And I think wildlife management, now, we've also made the point that Hanson has a lot of open space. We have a lot of, you know, we talked about, that parking lot thing where that horrible building is, turning that in.
Yep.
Making that, you know, having a reason to come to Hanson is to go to the Burge, you know, so.
Yeah, I will be honest with you. One of the things the Economic Development Committee has been talking about, which you might be like, where is she going? She's going off on a tangent. And yes, potentially I am going off on a tangent. But one of the things the Economic Development Committee has talked about, and Mr. Sweezy knows because he was on the Economic Development Committee with us, is what makes Hanson different? Our open space is one of the things that makes us different. The availability of places to hunt and fish and just walk and commune with nature. And in a world where everybody's building on every square inch of, you know, of property, that is becoming more and more rare, and it is becoming an identifying characteristic for Hanson. And so the Economic Development Committee actually sees Burridge as something that we want to market, and we somehow want to do something along Main Street to have connectivity to the Burridge through like a boardwalk or something else. So, so for a number of reasons, we're supportive of that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked with Phil for 20 years about how can we get from the commuter rail station, the walking through the woods, and there's Burridge right here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but you need more information. You want to know really what is in it for the town. It's not enough that we just acquire the property and knock the buildings down. We want the buildings going. They're an eyesore. They're very difficult for anyone to reuse. You've had an appraisal done of the economics of leasing the buildings, and for us, we would take them down.
Yeah. They are an attractive nuisance, and we've had issues with them, so, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Did you guys have any, we've got the.
Request for something else.
Yes, but did you want to chime in on this? Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
I'll be back in touch with Lisa.
All right, we're going to take things a little bit out of order just because in consideration of, we've got TJ Rolfe and Dave Mansfield, who are our chair and vice chair respectively of the Conservation Commission when they reorganized after Mr. Clemens' resignation. And they had asked for a couple of articles in our upcoming October town meeting warrant. So did you guys want to come up front or? Okay, awesome, thank you.
is this an issue with the state?
It's not an issue, you guys aren't going to be voting.
Okay.
Right, so, I mean, there's no vote being taken, and I assume it's probably something you've already talked about as a commission.
Yeah, boy.
So-
They posted an agenda for tonight.
But isn't
I
that
just wanna make
isn't
sure.
it delightful, and I might say potentially a first, that we would ever have a quorum because there's a select board member that's on the conservation. I think that's delightful. Okay,
Posted agenda for tonight.
okay, excellent, okay. TJ's all over it.
No,
All right. Huh?
Lana's.
Well, somebody is. That's all that counts. All right, so, I know you had a couple of, items that you guys wanted to talk to us about. I think one of them was replenishing the conservation, fund for $40,000. And I had asked whether you could reconsider that or take a look at it in light of our fiscal situation. So I don't know if you guys wanted to tell us what you were planning on doing with that money and what your thoughts were and.
Well, some of it has to do with improvements to the properties. And one of them has to do with the boardwalk on Crooker Place that we initially proposed to do before this earmarked money.
Yeah.
Involved. So we don't know where that stands right now, the earmarked funds. And so we decided to leave the 16,000 in there for that reason. Now, if the earmarked funds are going to take care of it, then we don't need it in our budget.
All right, so just to clarify, Mr. Mansfield, your concern is that potentially as a non-compliant MBTA community, we might get clapped back on the earmark.
Well, maybe, but that's not really
Oh, okay.
necessarily our concern. We just don't know where the earmarked funds are going. Originally, we had planned to put a bridge in there.
Okay,
And then the earmark issue came up, and we don't know where it stands.
Ms. Green, is there some controversy with the earmark that I'm not aware of?
Well, there is a little bit according to Mr.
okay.
DeFreitas.
Okay,
Not a controversy,
oh,
but.
a question, I guess I should say.
Well,
Okay,
correct me if I'm wrong about the amount, but apparently there's an engineering study that's going to be paid for out of that earmark fund.
So the earmark fund for the boardwalk, the Plymouth County Hospital site, and, oh my God, the.
Bonnie House.
I said the Bonnie House, the boardwalk, and Plymouth County Hospital site. So the earmark was $170,000 for 3 projects. So we had to submit a scope of work and a budget, which Mr. DeFreitas and myself, we developed and submitted. The money, you have to spend the money first and submit to me the invoices, and the warrants showing reimbursement for those expenses, of which we will then submit to the state for reimbursement of the money to the state.
Right. And that's why we have the 16,000.
Because you need us to front the money to get reimbursed. Okay, that makes sense.
That's correct.
Yep.
But there's another question though, and that is that the last time I talked to Mr. DeFreitas about it, he wanted to give me the good news that he had earmarked, if you could use the word again, $5,000 of that money toward this boardwalk. But it's gonna cost 16 to 18,000, so we have additional concerns about the money.
Okay, hold on, let me just,
I'm wondering if you ought to take this offline, Lisa, with Mr. DeFreitas and work through this.
He had
'cause
told
this-
me to put a line item in that would give us 5,000 toward this boardwalk / bridge.
Okay, so Lisa, I very strongly suggest that you and Mr. Mansfield and Mr. DeFreitas speak about that for the time being. It seems to make sense to front the full $16,000, and then you guys can figure out how that sausage is made and whether Tony stepped out and put in the 5,000 when it should. I don't know what happened, and I don't think we're gonna figure that out tonight. So you need to speak to Mr. DeFreitas about it.
At any rate, that's the
Yeah, okay, so that's
explanation for why the
16,000 of it.
16,000.
Okay, yep, okay,
So as far as that goes.
yep.
The other money is money that we need to spend toward maintaining the properties. We have more of them, more trails than we ever had, and since COVID, there's been more and more use.
Yes.
Which is good,
It is good.
but it also means that there's more maintenance involved.
Yep.
And most of this money has to do with that.
Okay, and you need all of that now, or could some of it potentially wait till May, or we're just trying to balance our competing needs?
There's a couple of moving parts.
Okay.
We asked for $30,000 in May and passed it over because there was no money to be had.
Yep,
Based on the spending plan that we have, we're spending 35 of the 40,000 if we do everything that's on the plan.
Okay,
There are some, I'm going to confirm this hopefully tomorrow night, but I think there's 7,500 in here that we can take out.
okay, so what we'll do is, so you guys are meeting tomorrow night?
We have a meeting tomorrow night.
Okay, all right, so, what we can do is we'll keep the placeholder in, and we can always, even after we close the warrant, we can always decrease the dollar amount.
Right, so
We
I
can't.
think we can get
yeah,
it down, I just need to
Okay.
finalize the details before I give you a new number.
That would be amazing.
And then then we can look at if there's anything that could wait a year on the project list if it gets worse, but
Okay,
that's kind of, these are our goals, they've been our goals for the 2024, 2025 season. We haven't been able to start most of them because the budget replenishment was passed over in May, so
Yep.
we are trying to still do that. And
and we
Some
definitely
of the
want.
things on
yeah,
here,
yeah.
we certainly could take them out. It's just a matter of not doing them, like the Smith now was asking about. We don't have to do it.
Have we been given the list?
Huh?
The select board hasn't been given the list?
No.
Okay.
Well, you have, but the board.
I know,
the
yeah.
Select board hasn't been given.
So,
So some of these trail maintenance things, we could just not do.
Some of them are improvements that if
Right.
the money's not available, we won't do.
well, I certainly, it's not our intention to, block you guys from doing what you have volunteered to do. And, we don't want to put you in the unenviable position of volunteering to do a job and not being given any resources to do it. So that is not where we're coming from at all. But I don't want to, be boring and say we're up against the wall, la, la, la. You guys know where we're at, the whole town does. So it's tight. And so really, I just wanted to see if there was any wiggle room. So if you guys can kind of kick the tires on that tomorrow night and then get back to us, if you're able to winnow it down a bit, that would be amazing. That would be great.
Did you have a number in mind that you wanted to try to get
No.
to?
No.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is, basic upkeep that
Right.
we need to do. So the number's
Okay.
not gonna go to zero,
Okay.
but we should be able to get it lower.
Okay, and then I think you guys also wanted to talk to us about the conservation agent.
Yeah,
And when I spoke to you last week on the phone, you made a very compelling argument about potentially increasing his hours back to where they were because you've lost 2 people from your board of volunteers on the commission who were certified wetland scientists, and you now no longer have them to leverage.
right, so Mr. Clemens and Mrs. Laporte were both experts in the field. This is what they did as a profession. And no offense to the 3/4 of the commission sitting in the room this evening, we're not experts. And the conservation agent is an expert. He has he went back to school and got a doctorate that pertains to wetland science and environmental science. And having lost a lot of institutional knowledge and expertise, we're kind of dependent upon him and his expertise to be able to adequately process the needs of the people coming before us.
And that makes sense. There's a lot of pitfalls for the unwary in what you're doing. And so even though you guys are well-intentioned and you've certainly put the time and effort in, you're not the equivalent of a doctorate in that subject. So, so did you guys I think you sent a placeholder, right? For
It's in the
yeah,
placeholder. in,
Okay. And did that make it into the warrant, ladies?
I thought it was, but I don't see it in here, so I
Okay,
do have your information on it, so I can re-add it.
Okay,
I
and
don't
then
know.
again, tomorrow night, we're hoping to finalize that and get it into you.
okay, so yeah, if you can just circle back with us after you guys meet tomorrow night and just let us know where you make out on potentially winnowing down. And do you have any conservation funds that you can utilize? Are there any funds for either of these things that I know that I know there's specific purposes, I just,
So there is a wetlands administration fund.
like that mitigation, you know how you've got mitigation, which I know needs to be used for mitigation, but you've
So
got like.
there is a, I think it's a I forget the name of the fund offhand, but we are already using, the better part of $13,000 out of that fund to fund what we've currently got, as part of the town meeting process.
Okay, so if you guys can just, tomorrow night, just like sharpen your pencil a little, see if there's a little money from there, if you can winnow down a little bit on the trails, and then let us know where you land with Frank. I think, did anybody have any questions on that? Anybody? Okay, all right. Did you guys have any questions for us?
Well, the only question I had was, on the other article about the, properties. Is that
Oh,
something-
okay, yeah, talk to us about that. Yep.
Is that
Article
something that,
18,
the
Article
select-
18.
Select board will support?
Article, is it 18 you
It's
said?
Article 18, yeah. I pulled it out because there's some typos in it that have to be fixed. State Street and Forest.
Well, do you mind walking us through them? Like, just give us a little highlight of, I mean, this is, to me, it was just sort of like a ministerial cleaning up of what should have always been done.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Because we
Okay.
own it. If
Yeah,
we own
so
it, we're
I-
just gonna
Yes.
continue on
I didn't have any
conservation.
objections.
The deeds
Yeah.
don't have to be, they don't have to be redeeded, but they have to be repurposed.
Right.
Specific to conservation.
Right.
Yep,
These are things that are already voted by town meetings in the
No,
past.
these
Right.
ones are,
right.
Huh?
these ones are not,
These are not?
no.
Oh,
So,
okay, there's two
in the,
issues.
in the past couple of years, we've traditionally put
Right.
2 to 4 parcels on the warrant to kind of
Right.
peck away at this list. This is the whole list, and we're trying to
Just do
just
the
finish
list.
it. at
Just
once.
clean it,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just be done.
All right,
And these are all either contiguous to other
Yeah.
conservation properties, they're, they're not buildable, they're takings for back taxes, I mean, I had looked through them when I originally saw this, and, I mean, is there,
The assessor's records currently have them all as custody of
oh,
conservation.
that's right.
This is kind of a legal.
Well, the
cleanup to make-
little.
so it is a housekeeping.
The Little Cedar Swamp stuff, I thought we voted on that
There's
already.
Well,
There's a
that's right.
surprising number of parcels in the little.
That's kind of
It's
cool.
not so
I know.
little.
That's quite a tale.
So we have voted on some of them previously.
Oh, okay, because I know we voted for a whole bunch of them.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, I
so
remember
there
that.
It's, wasn't the most organized of processes as we
No.
tackled it previously. So we're trying to do it all at once and
Right.
keep it simpler to track and get it.
I mean, I don't have any objections. Do you guys
This
have
is-
it?
this
Yeah, so I think to answer your question,
Long time
Mr.
coming.
Mansfield, we're gonna support
Yeah.
that. We don't have a problem.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
then the second question that relates to not this list, but the other list that you guys have, and it's not a town meeting article, it's, we need to get legal to move on the deeds that, on the other list, the deeds that have already been voted. And we're not sure how to get that moving forward.
Ms. Green?
So, if you could send me that list, I can see what town council has, because I know we have forwarded them lists in the past.
So it would be the same list that
I think Lon emailed her.
we sent over in maybe
Couple months ago.
Yeah.
late March, early April,
Right,
and we're politely told to wait till after town meeting to make a ruckus
right.
because everybody's hands were full.
That was the reference I was making earlier. not
Yes.
business.
Time to
So
make-
those are properties that were voted long since by a town meeting.
You get that
into
delivered.
conservation, but the deeds have never been, deeds don't have to be transferred.
Wow.
These never been specified as conservation.
Also, to go back to the earlier question about this and Article 97, the Article 97 process isn't completed until that town meeting vote is recorded at the registry.
Yep.
And that's the step that we're missing.
Okay,
Town
so-
meeting has voted, there's nothing registered at the registry to put that property into Article 97.
So you're in a weird limbo right now. Technically, somebody could come forward, do
So
something with
it
that
has
property.
happened in
Yeah,
the past.
yes, I know it has, I know it has.
And so, yeah, so that's
Yep.
where we're at with it.
Yep.
And we just like to have some kind of,
Yeah, and it could be just as simple as sending them all as one item to the registry of deeds. You don't have to do,
Recently retired assessor had him suggested doing one instrument for the list of properties.
Okay,
But I don't know that the last update we had before town meeting was we'll send it to town council and get to it after town meeting, so.
it's been a bit of a fire drill. I was going to say something less appropriate, but it's been a bit of a fire drill. We're finally able to get our sea legs again after 2 consecutive town meetings. It was a lot of work. Yeah.
I have one totally off the cuff request. I had spoken to Mr. Clemens about it. I walk a lot in Rocky Run. They put rocks in place where you go down the hill and go across towards the Dwelly Rock.
Right.
I'm a pretty nimble old goat, and I'm terrified to jump across that. There's not enough support there for someone to actually safely go across that.
Well, I can build a bridge there if we get.
No, not a bridge. All you gotta do is find an appropriate, another piece of granite, a triangular piece of granite, and just put it in the middle there. It's perfect. Because it's 2 big blocks.
Yeah.
It's too far apart.
Did it, I know exactly.
Oh, so you know what I'm talking about. I couldn't believe that, but I'm getting old and I can't go across that.
The reason it's the way it is because the previous way was blocking the fish run.
No, I know that, I know.
But no, I'm not being facetious. I could build a bridge there over those rocks.
Just,
But I'll need the money.
I know. Well, I was just thinking if we could find a big,
We're trying to get them to come down on their budget. You're adding
No,
to it.
if we could just find a couple of big boulders, I'll have my son do it.
Well, it would actually be easier and cheaper to build a short bridge there.
Really?
Then
Yeah.
It was a.
And not very
significant-
difficult either.
It was a significant undertaking to get the pieces of granite.
Oh, I'll bet it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it's just really, you cannot, especially if it's icy. Forget
That's
it.
going to be tricky.
Forget it, it's
So
like,
so anyway,
Yeah.
that would be the way to deal with that. I'm aware of the issue there.
is there, I'll say that because it'd be an issue if the icy, there's a liability there, I think. Because there's a lot of people that go across there. A lot of people walk in there.
All right, well,
Anyway, that's easy enough to do.
Okay.
I just need a
Just
little
need
money
money.
to do it.
Just money.
and I would be remiss if I didn't tell you guys, it is so obvious and so amazing, the work that you are all doing on the trails. Like, it is, I used to feel like I needed a machete to go wherever I went, and there's still a few little places, but you can't get to everywhere. But it's just such a delight that Plymouth County Hospital property, Smitty's Bog, the birdhouses, all of the extra work. I don't want you to think that it goes unnoticed. A lot of people that use those properties have commented frequently, and I know occasionally people will say stuff on Facebook, but I really, really appreciate all the effort that goes in, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Is ultimately people being able to enjoy the open space. And we wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for you guys literally trailblazing and doing all that work. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So have your people call our people. We'll work out the couple of issues that you brought up, and as I said to you before, TJ, just reach out if you guys have got anything. We support you, we appoint you, we want you to be successful, whatever we can do to help you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Get comfortable here a while.
All right. And as per usual, I've jumped the gate and I don't even know what the agenda is. Okay, all right, let's see, here we go. All right, accept the following donations received in March. My word, we're behind the 8 ball in our accepting of donations.
There was money we just let sit.
Should say May.
$50, and I don't think it would have earned a lot of interest, but.
I'll make a motion to accept the $50 donation to the police department.
Yep.
$50 donation for the police
Second.
department comfort dog.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Signed state primary warrant, Ms. Green.
Okay, do you have the document? So as we know, this is a presidential election year. There will be a state primary. Let's see, Tuesday, the 3rd day of September, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Precinct 1, Precinct 2, Precinct 3 at the Hanson Middle School. And this is the warrant, and we need a motion to, I guess, accept and sign the state primary warrant.
All right,
I will bring
so-
this to you, Madam Chair.
Did our clerk want to read that
Okay, where do I start?
just at the
I
beginning?
think she's handing this up.
Oh, Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, we're all set. Thanks.
In the name of the Commonwealth, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of said city or town who are qualified to vote in primaries, to vote at Precinct 1, Precinct 2, and Precinct 3 at the Hanson Middle School on Tuesday. I feel like I'm repeating myself. Tuesday, the 3rd day of September 2024, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purpose: to cast their votes for Senate primaries for the candidates of political parties for the following offices: Senator in Congress for this Commonwealth, Representative in Congress for the 9th District, Counselor for the 2nd District, Senator in General Court for the 2nd Plymouth and Norfolk District, Representative in General Court for the 5th Plymouth District, Representative in General Court for the 6th of Plymouth District, Clerk of Courts for Plymouth County, Register of Deeds for Plymouth District, and County Commissioner for Plymouth County. Hereof, fail not to make return of this warrant. I don't know if I need to read the.
No, you don't need to get all that.
So I will entertain a motion to set those dates, and those hours for those candidates.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much for taking the bullet for us, Mr. Hill. That was amazing. Okay, appoint annual election markers. And I think we've got a list in here, Ms. Green.
Make a motion to approve the list as presented.
I think we have to,
Go through the list.
Didn't we already do this?
yeah, why are we doing this again?
Didn't we already do this?
Just to reference.
We did this recently.
Changes.
Okay, Mr. Hill, can you quickly read all of the names?
That was
It's still
included in our general appointments that we did in June, this is done separately.
Okay. All right, I'll just work through. Okay, no, it's fine, I'll do it. Okay, I will entertain a motion to appoint the 2024 election workers for a term expiring August of 2025. Deborah J. Bonney, Lisa Marie Carson, Victoria Childs, Ellen Conant, Jane Durant, Linda Diamond, Kathleen Farrar, Daniel Johnson, Mary Beth Johnson, Julie Kelly, Jean Marie Keeley, Kathleen McGee, Paula Mitchell, Diane Nichol, Pat Ognack, Elvira Osso, James Rodick, Teresa Santalucia, Margaret Schneider, Matthew Spencer, Roberta Spencer, Heidi Waddell, Maureen Watson, Ernest B. Amato Jr., Janice Black, Marianne Bray, Corinne Cafardo, Patricia Concrete, Carol Conley, Arlene Diaz, Marianne Damasio, Anne Marie Heislip, Michelle Jones, Nancy Kerrigan, Deborah J. McCarthy, Thomas McSweeney, Francis Moran, Kathleen Moran, Sandra Nugent, Dennis O'Connell, Maureen O'Neill, Joseph O'Sullivan, Deborah Perkins, Jean Rooney, Paris Sanders, Alexander Stewart, Marilyn Webster, Margaret Westfield, Lee Baker, Scott Francis Cheney, Brian Clemens, Fred D. Cristofario, Robert A. Dodge III, Audrey Flanagan, Nancy Gaffey, Christine Huska, Stephen W. Lyons, Jennifer Mann, Leanne Mann, Marianne Muldowney, Kimberly Newcomb, Patty Norton, Catherine Smith, Curtis Tarvis, and finally, but not least, Elisa Valley. I will entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, amazing. Okay, that brings us to appoint John Sadakis to the Thomas Mill Commission. We typically ask to meet somebody and get to know them a little bit. Mr. Sadakis has already met with this board and was already appointed to the Historical Commission. So I'll entertain a motion to appoint John Sadakis to the Thomas Mill Commission. What is his,
Second.
his, expiration of his,
I believe it's 3 years.
appointment? I'm gonna say it expires in July of 2025, and you can get back to us, because I don't want to appoint him for 3 years. Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. That brings us to High Street Park Committee discussion. What say you, Mr. Weeks?
I think we put this on to discuss reducing the committee down from 7 members to 5 members. Is that why it's on it?
I think so. You said you had wanted to talk about it and just, yeah.
Okay. We want to reduce it from 7 members to 5 members.
Because you're having a heck of a time getting a quorum, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think with anybody, it all depends on people's schedules meshing. What we're finding is that Mondays is incredibly hard. That's the only time we can ever really do anything. All the committee members are on, or representatives, aside from 2, they're members at large. They're all on other committees, so it's just harder to do it. So, we've had a couple of people fall off. It was brought up at the last meeting that we think about reducing it. The idea was to see if there's an appetite to do that. And I think if we're going to do it, the time is now to do it.
Yeah.
Do you have representatives from various other, like, do you need to have 7 in order to meet that?
So it would have been great to have some folks on the Conservation Commission, which I think we might. Yeah. So Phil Clemens used to be Conservation. He's not there anymore. So we're going to need to.
Dave's you knew.
No, I had a feeling, but he's not, we haven't voted on it, so it's not official yet. So it would be nice to have him on that. We have someone from Planning Board, we have someone from the Water Department, 2 members at large, and then I think I started off as a liaison, but we like just made it a member. So that would be that.
So go back to a liaison position?
No, I don't know,
Oh,
it
all right.
depends.
So what are you saying?
There's
I'm
7
saying going
members.
from 5 to 7, you just listed 5
Seven
committees
to
and then
5.
2 at large.
7 to 5.
7 to 5.
So it's
So who
myself.
would come off? The 2 at large?
So we had Marion Damasio come off.
Yeah, Charity came off.
Yeah, and then,
I don't mean people, I mean like representatives of various committees.
Well, I'm answering both of your questions. So if you're asking me, who is a representative?
Yeah.
It's Don Ellis from
Yeah.
the Planning Board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was Phil Clemens from the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Now that's vacant, should be filled
By one of us.
by David Mansfield. Don Howard from the Water Department.
yeah,
And then I was a liaison, I think initially, but then we made me an appointed member, so that's
Yeah.
4. And then we have Kathy, Robin, and Marion Damasio, who are members at large.
But Marion.
Marianne
Yeah.
fell off.
okay.
Kathy's still there. She's our secretary, so it's
Yeah.
hard to find secretaries, so I'm really hoping that she stays. And then Robin, who's been a dedicated member forever. So the issue becomes, out of those, we either reduce the representation on there to get down to 5, or one of those 2 have to go, and we have to make an internal discussion around that. So it's up to you guys. how
Are
wanna
you
do it.
able to,
Oh, and Ann's on the list too, so.
well, no, Ann had already said that she was just doing that if you needed help.
I understand, but I can either go off, this is the list. or
Right.
this
She's
is
not
off
on
the
that,
list.
she said a couple times.
I'm not
Yeah.
on that list anymore.
So, the only thing I can think of is, do you want to go back to liaison? Or do you guys want to talk about it at your next meeting and get back to us on what you want to do?
Yeah,
I
'cause I
don't
mean.
want to have us dictate something that isn't going to work for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that, for me, that's part of the conversation, so we put it on the agenda is fine. I didn't make the formal request to have it on the agenda because I still have to work out what that's gonna look like. We need to appoint people into the vacancies before we start having conversations about reducing it down, so, I'm more concerned about getting someone from conservation on there and getting, from what, Lynn had told us, we have to actually appoint these members first and foremost. So I think that's, the first step is actually appointing it. Because the way it's operating right now is, I'm the chair of the committee. So we need to be able to do that and then check to see if there's an appetite to reduce it down. Whether it be by reducing the representation or reducing the numbers of members at large. So,
like planning and conservation and water, they each respectively appoint their representative. You don't vote on that.
exactly.
So those 3 de facto are members. Unless we change and say
wants to
we don't
remove
want.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Ms. McDowell, I thought you said Mr. Weeks had asked to have this on the agenda. I'm sorry. Okay, all right, because I'm.
It wasn't me, it was Don. Because other than that,
Okay,
I haven't had any of these conversations. We have not talked about any of this stuff.
okay, all right. So you don't want us to take a vote, you want to come back to us and I'm just trying to be supportive, but I don't know what to really do to be supportive.
Well, for right now, we need to have an actual committee. So at the very least, get based on that information. And the only reason why we talked about putting this on the committee was because we don't have a committee.
Okay.
Because no one's been appointed as of the last conversation.
All right, okay, I see where you're going with it. Yeah, so when we did our annual appointments, for some reason, this committee did not get appointed.
Well, I actually
Yeah.
was appointed, I had to tell
Right.
Beth I was not.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So there was an
I
appointment.
was.
So I'm very confused on
Yeah.
where that is. So the only reason why
Something's wrong.
I wanted to put this.
Because there was no definitive who was on the committee, who isn't the
No, Ian was
But I got the
appointed.
letter.
You
I
were
did,
because
yeah.
we went through and did committee appointments for the select board members, not because of the regular annual.
And then I got.
So this conversation around reducing the members and stuff, that came from Don Ellis, that did not come from me.
Okay.
The only thing that I wanted to get on here was an appointment, so we could actually hold meetings legally, because we're meeting under the assumption that we were appointed, but we weren't.
Okay, so we could, appoint everybody for a 3-month period of time, then you could get back to us and let us know whether that's whether everybody wants in for the remainder, whether you want to be 7, whether you want to be
Yeah.
5, and just let us know.
We've decided that we're not gonna meet in August because there's just nothing really happening.
Okay.
So it'd be in September when we.
All right, so why don't we say for 4 months? We'll do it for 4 months. And so let me list.
So, yeah, can we just take a vote on this?
With the
Yes.
exclusion of Ann.
Yeah, so we're going to appoint, I'm not, we're not going to appoint Don Ellis, David, or Don Howard, because, well, maybe we should do Don.
I think we should do it as a slate, really.
Okay, all right, we'll do it, even though it's a bit redundant, but
Yeah.
yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. All right, so I will entertain a motion to appoint Joseph Weeks, Robin Sparta-Curran, Kathy Gerhart, Donald Howard, David Mansfield, and Donald Ellis to the High Street Park Committee for a 3-month term beginning today.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay.
Right, and then I'll come back and we'll put something that talks about the reduction of this.
Yes.
Because we have to, I don't want to boot people off that are
No.
really,
Yeah.
that want to be there. So-
Okay, so you'll have your people call our people,
Yeah.
we'll work on that, okay. All right, that's awesome, and then accept Joyce Cameron's resignation from the Pond Reuse Committee, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great, that brings us to discuss October special town meeting, Ms. Green.
Okay, so, the deadline to submit articles has closed. It was, August 2nd, Friday, August 2nd to submit articles. Any articles now that are presented to us, we are going to need reasoning of why they were not presented,
That's my fault.
prior to the deadline. Of course, there are going to be instances where this information was not available prior to August 2nd. So if an article is presented to us where the information was not presented to us, we will put it for the board of whether they want to include it in the warrant. Unless, it's like a type of emergency type of situation where we need to put it before October special town meeting for approval. If there's any kind of funding.
I would like to speak to anybody who did not meet the deadline and would like to have an article included. We have deadlines for reasons. I think it was clearly communicated, and on multiple occasions it was communicated. And when we fail to commit to those deadlines, you guys end up holding the bag, running around like maniacs trying to make it all happen. So that doesn't work.
We can make, I was just saying, it has to be an emergency situation.
Yep. And I know we've got a lot of placeholders, so there's some syncing up with numbers people have got to get
Correct.
us and that type of thing, and that's fine, that's understandable. Sometimes getting prices for things, multiple, going through the procurement process can be laborious, and they might not have that answer. Did you, did you want us to vote to close the warrant this evening?
We actually don't have that on the agenda, so
Well, I don't think we need to have it on, you've got discussed town meeting, we're able to vote it. But if you want,
certainly vote this evening to close the town meeting warrant.
what's your deadline for, back us into the timeline for, posting, getting it to Beth? What are we doing for, PR, getting the message out there, the boards, the newspaper, website?
So we have put in the request to reserve the middle school for Monday, October 7th. We're going to follow the communication. It's going to go on the website. It'll go on all our social media. We'll put it in the Express. We'll put the information out on the I don't know what they call them, the sandwich boards.
Yes.
That we had before. As far as the dates, do you have the exact date for, that the town clerk will want it for posting?
And are there any articles that, you want to call to our attention? That we, or,
Yes, actually, There are two articles that I would like to bring to your attention. Okay. And for right now, they are placeholders because we are working on finalizing the language. Sorry, let me just, Article 21. So we've been without an IT director since April. We have had one of the IT specialists from Whitman who has been helping us out on an as-need basis. We have advertised the position. We have gotten quite a response. However, we're getting responses from people out of state who must not realize that this is an in-house.
Oh, yeah.
That it's an in-house position, not a remote position. With having some of the conversations with the IT professionals at Whitman, they suggested that because the IT director position is governed within the personnel classification and compensation bylaw, it does not give us any flexibility to really attract IT professionals. As far as the salary, as far as any kind of benefits, as far as vacation, sick leave, we have no flexibility at all. There was a suggestion to remove the technology director from the bylaw and utilize it as a contracted position. So similar to the highway, similar to our assessor, make it a contracted position, which would give us a little flexibility to attract IT professionals.
So we're just moving it, we're not,
I'm putting on it to remove it from the classification and compensation bylaw, where basically our hands are tied and we really don't have any flexibility.
and that'll be added to the explanation.
That would be so it would be a contract position, like a department head, so that there's,
Yeah.
like if we can get somebody by offering them 5 more days vacation,
Yeah.
we've got more flexibility.
No, I agree, we need to explain that, I think it just.
Oh, and that would absolutely be explained. I just want to, bring your attention to that.
Don't you need to have that in wage and personnel? Don't we need to vote on that in wage and personnel?
That will be in wage and personnel as well.
Okay.
Yes,
All
it
right.
will be going to wage and personnel, but we were talking to about it. Also, there is also another article in here where we're going to remove the IT director. There is an article in here to create an IT specialist position. Now, we created and added an IT assistant position as a part-time position. But that position, we found that position brings us interest of people who are at a very basic level of IT. As a part-time position, the IT assistant that we had really was not able to do a lot of the hands-on tasks that were required. If we were to create an IT specialist position, that is going to be a person who is going to be on deck, on premises. You need the hands to be able to keep up with the IT. And if we create this position, take the IT director out, create this position in, it's going to really set us up for a more, I think, a more successful IT program. We do have the cyber security assessment report that is going to be presented to the select board in executive session under the cybersecurity exception. And I think that's going to happen September 10th. And I
That
think,
will highlight some of the
and
reasons.
more of this will make sense
Okay.
when they talk with you about this. But the town, we cannot continue to ignore IT. We've got to start paying attention. Whitman has a top-notch team. They're very well run in their IT. We don't have an IT director. We're finding that there were a lot of things that was not getting done. That leaves us in a little bit of a vulnerable position. So paying attention to IT is something that right now I'm very passionate about because I don't want to see the town hurt by this.
Okay.
Because it will cost a significant amount of money if our T network is taken down.
Are these two articles that you're talking about, the one to to remove it from the,
Wage and
personnel, yeah, wage and personnel, and are they gonna be next to each other, like subsidy, or are they gonna be like in two different areas in the warrant? Okay.
Well, they should be next to each other, so, yeah, so, I mean, we're gonna rework it so they're next to each other. So, Article 21 will be removing the IT director, and then Article 22 will be to create the IT specialist. That will be within the class. And like I said, this will come to wage and personnel with job descriptions and things like that for consideration.
To Mr. Heal's point, if you guys could just give a once-over and make sure that the flow and the order of the articles makes sense so
Yeah.
that, we don't have some weird disconnect.
Yeah, no, it will be in a much better flow.
Now, the right to farm article, I know Karen Adolph had asked for this. We were originally going to do it in May, and then I know Mr. DeFrayis had some concerns, and I thought we were going to have try to get the Agricultural Commission re-engaged to massage this and work on it, and I don't believe that happened, so I really don't think that we are ready for prime time with this agricultural right to farm article. Do you agree? Because I know it's your jam, so I just want to...
I thought legal was supposed to look at what we had.
Yeah, legal was going to take a look at the proposed language, and then, I don't know, Mr. DeFrayis expressed some concerns, which he frequently does not do. He is not a person to ring alarm bells. He thought there were a lot of pitfalls for the unwary. We're not ready for prime time
Right.
yet.
Well,
So,
right, yeah.
let's take this out, but let's put some actions behind this. Legal
at the
counsel, reach out to Tony, get the Agricultural Commission engaged and have a conversation so that we know what we're getting into here.
There's also going to be, Article 30 is related to the South Shore Technical High School, the regional agreement amendment. So we have the placeholder in there, and we hope to have that actual agreement to the board, as soon as we can get it from, Superintendent Hickey.
Okay, and I know something else we had talked about was making sure that we've got sufficient funds to fight the state for the MBTA community. Okay, so what article is
We have
that?
that in there. That is, let's see.
Towards the beginning,
Beginning, okay.
they didn't put a dollar amount in there.
District.
Yeah, I think, I
We don't
mean,
have
even
a
though
dollar amount, yeah.
it wouldn't be Kate that we, would have to have special counsel, but I think maybe we could maybe get a sanity check from her on what she thinks we could expect. I don't know if you've got time between now and town meeting, Lisa, to reach out to special counsel and see if you can get a somewhat accurate dollar amount. It's hard to predict because we don't know how they're going to come at us.
It is hard to predict because I know when we were looking at this for the Maytown meeting, I did ask that question of whether there was a way to present some type of an idea of the cost to this. And I believe I was told it's almost impossible, but I'll see what I can find out because we do have Attorney Michael Walsh is working on a pro bono basis for that, but I will reach out to Kate and see if there's any way that they can possibly give us some type of a figure on this.
Well, to be clear, he's not working to defend towns that
No,
are
he's
sued.
not working to defend us.
He's working
He's gonna
on
include us.
the other side of things.
He's going to include us in the amicus briefs that they will submit to
Right.
the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So there's no charge on that.
And
but we'll
then,
try to come up with
I
something.
noticed that we're, and I know I've been harping on this, so I do realize the irony of this, me asking this question, but, installing a generator, Article 20, for the library and senior center, I thought that,
Charlie's working on getting me the quote. I haven't received it yet.
no, that wasn't what I was gonna ask, but thank you for letting me know that. I was going to ask, I thought that, Chief O'Brien was working on trying to get a grant for that.
Yeah.
And he has told me on a number of occasions that he was working on getting a grant. Is this preemptive? And if we get the grant, then we're not going to need this money? I know we need this generator because it makes us ready for, the weather conditions that hit. And then we can have this as a heating and cooling center for seniors and other people that may not have the right,
Oh, but the chief tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll follow up because I don't recall him saying to me that he was applying
You've
for
heard
a
him say
grant.
that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
for that, because I don't know under what program.
I got the sense it was a federal program.
It might be a federal, I don't, I
I
just.
thought it was like like a resiliency thing. But again, okay, yeah, we can follow up with that. I'm not saying remove it. I just, you know, if it turns out he is doing that, I would definitely like the explanation to be expanded to say, you know, we plan on applying for this grant. If we don't get it, worst case scenario is we'll take this money from free cash. Okay? Any comments on the rest of the articles? So, with that said, removing the right to farm, article, I will entertain a motion to close the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Okay? All in favor? Okay, great.
Who's taking on the right to farm?
Lisa is gonna follow up. We're gonna have to engage agricultural. Nice to see you guys. Agricultural, then legal, and da-da-da, so it's multifaceted. And there is a planning board factor there too, that I'm not sure, maybe they need to meet with the agricultural commission. There needs to be some cross-pollination there.
May I ask one question, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So I just want to ask, Ms. Pierce, who was here tonight to present the state's interest in the light control property, if there's any movement on that, it would need to be a town meeting. It would need to go to town meeting. So.
There's a placeholder in here, wasn't there?
Did we have?
Was there something in here for light control?
Light control?
I thought there was.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right, yep.
And again, this devil is in the details.
Right,
It sounded very
preliminary.
much like a freebie deal, and I'm not down with that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Just to be clear, and I don't think Mr. Weeks, I don't think anybody is, really, so,
We will, you know, we'll work on it. Like I said, everything is very preliminary. We want to at least come before the board to let you know the state has expressed some interest. And then we could get basically our direction from there.
okay, amazing.
All right.
Okay, that brings us to meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the July 16th, 2024 open session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. That brings us to one-day liquor licenses. We have a 7/27/24 for a class reunion. And yes, that may or may not be a date in the past. And August 11th, 24, birthday party, and a 11/8/25 wedding. I will entertain a motion to approve those liquor licenses.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Two votes in the past.
It's
Yes.
interesting.
Going the way
We
back.
already have it.
Committee updates. I don't have anything major on Economic Development Committee except save the date, September 28th. Hanson Day, be there, be square. Okay.
I'm gonna be there.
High Street Park Committee, I think, okay. Highway Committee, we're good. Recreation Commission, I don't have any other updates. That brings us to Town Administrator report, Ms. Green.
Okay.
Are we skipping over, the town administrator goals and this?
I'm sorry, we are,
Yeah, we
because
skipped.
we are not, they were not refined as we had discussed the last time. Thank you, Mr. Green. And similarly, we are skipping over capital strategic solutions because they did not have the project plan and the numbers that we had requested. So they weren't ready for prime time.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so I'm really happy to report, after probably a year and a half to almost 2 years, General Code has finished the first draft of the online bylaws. They are not available for everybody to look at because it's a draft. We are going to print it out. It's about 452 pages, so we're going to be printing that out. Actually, we're reaching out to JR Graphics to see if they can print those out for us so we can have everybody look at them. I can grant access to members of the board who want to go in and look at it online to see how it's all set up, so let me know and I'll get you access to it.
I told Lisa, I like hard copy because I like to mark stuff up.
I know.
You know, I
Yeah.
will look at it virtually, but 500 pages is a lot to
It is
unpack
a lot,
virtually,
it is a
so,
lot.
yeah.
The draft that you'll be looking at, did already, the part of their, process included a legal analysis of every single bylaw, to see if it was still in compliant with state law, if it was not in compliant, it was contrary, so, there is all legal analysis included. So what you're looking at is our same bylaw but it's correctly written with the legal analysis, and it's going to be in line with our state laws and things like that, so.
And once we go through that, will we then be referring it to our town council for a final look?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Is it possible to have the town print a copy for those of us that would print it
She
anyway?
is doing that.
Yes, we're going to do that, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
She is. Like I said, it's about 452 pages.
Yeah,
One ream of our paper is 500 pages, so we'd go through almost
Yeah.
5 reams of paper. So we're gonna reach out to JR Graphics to, and it would probably be much better, darker and things like
yeah.
that,
So I
so.
wouldn't mind double-sided and 2 sheets per side, different
right,
things like
yeah,
that to
yeah.
save paper, but other people want full
Right, so,
size.
again, this has been a long process, but we've got the first draft,
So
so,
that's amazing, kudos.
that's
Definitely.
everything great. And another milestone, town council has completed its review of the personnel policies. I have it on my desk right now. I am reviewing it to review town council comments. Once I get that done, I'm gonna send it back to HRS, have them update that, and then I will give the select board a copy of it, printed copy of it to take a look.
What's your ETA on that?
I'm hoping to get it done maybe by next week. Again, it's about 300 pages, so I get through a couple pages, and so
Okay.
I'm really working to get through that, but
Okay.
we have it, from town council. So again, another great milestone, because that's been a long time in the works. We already talked about the deadline for October special town meeting, was Friday. We've got basically all our articles. We've got the, draft. Highway director position is posted again, reposted, advertised in the Express, on our website. It's on the MMA and on the Public Works Association website and on Indeed. We have not received one application. Just give it, not one.
How long has it been up there?
Basically since over a week. I got one phone call from somebody had a couple questions. We have not received one resume, unless
Tricky
Lynn
time of the
received
year.
something, but.
Yeah, tricky time of
Any highway director resumes? Nothing. This is really concerning. This is really concerning. Anyway, just wanted to give you that update. It's out there. It's posted.
Don't hit the panic button, it's a week out. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but, hopefully third time will be a charm. Our office has, we have been working with the Harpers, the online, leave request, electronic leave request and balance, tracking system. When we lost a highway director in towns, went their separate ways, that kind of came to a halt. It's been working again.
What do you mean the IT director?
Yes, who did I say? IT
Highway.
director. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was trying to connect the dots.
I'm trying.
Like, I didn't know he was working on that. Okay, yeah.
IT director, when we parted, went separate ways. Harper's came to a little bit of a halt, but we've completed gathering, apart from a few employees that still haven't responded. We asked them for their updated leave balances as of August 5 and their hire date, anniversary date, so we can make sure we've got all the most accurate information. We are sending that over. Emily's working on the spreadsheet to send over to Harper's. They can fill in all of that, and we're gonna hope that this goes live August 26th. They are, updating and they're finalizing the, training videos, which, all the employees will be able to go in and look. It's a pretty easy program, so hopefully by then we will be up and running on that and start tracking leave balances electronically. So, today, Building Inspector Kerry Glass, Town Planner Tony DeFrayis, Facilities Technician Charlie Baker, myself, Senior Center Director Mary Collins, met with a representative from Box Modular Specialty Buildings. They are gonna be designing and constructing the small addition to the senior center, which is grant funded by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. Box Modular, they, have been procured through Sourcewell Collaboration that does, large procurements, for governments. So it's going to satisfy any type of procurement. And what the great, news about this is that the initial building quote came in well under the $300,000 that she has for budget. But it only included basically the building and constructing the building.
The outer envelope.
We would have had to have, bid and contracted for the site work, plumbing, electrical.
Yeah.
But what the representative told us today is they can do a turnkey building. And given that the initial quote for this skeleton came in well under, we're gonna go that direction and just have all of that service under the same procurement, rather than having to bid it out each
Are they
separate service.
magically able to do it for $300,000?
We haven't got that final quote yet, but,
Insert heavy sarcasm here.
you know,
Yeah.
based on the money he had left over, it looks like we will get the full package by this one company. They use local vendors, they use, companies that have been vetted already through the state, so they follow all the right procedures, prevailing wage. So it'll just take a lot of that burden off of us for having to contract out with all of
Okay.
those. So that's really wonderful service.
And we are going to wrap that up by the end of the year so that we don't get
As soon as they
penalized?
can, yep. They did the site walk today with the representative, he took pictures and things like that, so they're
Have we
working
been
on all of that.
super duper clear with them that this is money that we will get clawed back if they do not finish well before the stroke of midnight on December 31st?
I did
joke,
let
but I'm
them know
not
that we
joking.
really want this project done sooner rather than later. You know, for funding purposes. I really didn't want to go into the dirty details of it, but they do understand.
Well,
the-
whatever contract we enter into them, make sure that we've got a deadline on
Oh,
when
yeah,
we've got
yeah.
to finish
They-
it.
There is a complete understanding that this
Well,
project.
I don't want to have to go to town meeting and say, we thought we had this grant, but we didn't have it, we've got to, you know, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
like I said, the initial quote, like the initial structure is done. So they just need to add in all the extras on that, so. But, Mary is very happy. This is really going to be a great addition to the senior
And
center.
it's well-deserved and way overdue.
Very well
Yeah.
deserved. So some town offices, including our office, have been taking calls from residents with many questions about their National Grid electric bills.
Yes, I've seen the online posts, yeah.
So we have a very good understanding. I mean, Good Energy has put an update onto the website, the Hanson, communitypower.com. They can go on that. There is literally a picture of a National Grid bill that outlines what people are getting very confused about, and I'm saying this now so that if people are watching, they'll be able to look. There has always been a delivery service charge that is still National Grid. So on the top of the bill, well, in the middle, it'll say delivery services. All those delivery services, you have your transmission, solar, electric vehicle. All those charges by times kilowatts are always been National Grid. They're still at National Grid. You get your total.
People think that that's a new charge.
Yep.
I think what's happening is people
They never
perhaps
paid
weren't paying
attention to the
attention.
bill.
Right, they weren't paying
Yeah, they
attention.
never-
And I
yeah.
think on top of that, their usage went up because it was super hot. So the conclusion that they're drawing is, these guys built me and it's a government plan and I'm getting nailed.
If
Yeah.
they had paid attention, like I just had paid the highest electric bill I've ever had. It was $399.12. I almost choked. But I had my AC on for solid, it's solid, and my kilowatt hours are like way up over what they were before.
Well, that's what
But
people are
what
finding
we-
out.
And there actually is a little chart, there's a little tiny graph there, you can see what your usage is.
Kilowatt hours
Yeah.
usage.
Year to year,
Yeah.
so.
And also, it was a 34-day timeframe.
That,
period as
somebody
well,
did
34
point out
days.
that it was more days
Yeah.
than that. Yeah.
So once you look at your delivery service, your total delivery services, you move down to your supply services. Now, the supply services, it will say Hanson Community Electric Dash Direct. Then it'll show them the kilowatt, the time. It'll say electricity supply. It'll say 0.13693 times the amount of kilowatt for your total supply. So total supply, total delivery, add those together, that's your amount. But because people see it up at the top, I guess, is a National Grid on one and your other supply services, they think the other supply services is a double bill, and that's just the direct billing.
Now, are we going to put something on our website saying, go to HansonCommunityPower.org? I mean, it was a feeding frenzy, lots of chum being thrown into the water, and so I...
So we have brought it to people, we have brought it to their attention. I will go on, if people want to go on the website, it'll say Community Power Program.
And have you gotten back to everybody that you said you would? on this? Well, I just say because there's one guy that asked, or I say guy, it was an anonymous person, and then people were like, did they never get back to you? And I don't know. I was very unclear about.
Well, no one has really left a message for us to call them back. Like, I've talked to everybody.
Okay.
I mean, I spent 49 minutes today with a woman explaining it to her.
Okay,
Over
all
and
right.
over again.
Yeah.
But I will make sure, because right now there doesn't seem to be a link on our website on our webpage to the website.
That might just save you guys a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You know, then that way that people can go look on their own. and,
They can look on their own now that the bill is there, and they can really look
Yeah.
and play. But, you know, we're still getting calls, but I just wanted people to hear that the answers are out there. If they still can't understand it, give us a call, because we're happy to explain it to them.
Okay.
Okay? People are really saving money. And when I was working through the figures with the woman today, instead of being $436, it was $324. And she went from 641 kilowatts her last bill to 2,300 this bill, so.
Oh, my word.
Well, I think that's the biggest panic,
That's
right? Is that
right.
people are looking at it for the first time with fresh eyes. And the
Yeah.
reality is that if we didn't put this in place, their bill would have been even higher by about $100 to $200. So
It would have been higher.
You're
yes.
right. I did think,
That-
Joe, I
that's
was
the-
thinking
that's the
to
reality.
myself, would it have, like, I don't know, looking, you know, whatever, you can look back. But I was like, would September have made a better choice to be like a transition month so that people would, but I guess whatever month you
it is-
do
it
it,
is-
you know, yeah.
Right.
it wouldn't have mattered because it would have been up
Yeah.
regardless. But I just think it's important that the numbers that Ed gave last time are accurate.
They are
People-
accurate,
People
yes.
are saving substantially.
They are,
Um,
yes, yes.
but,
But if
you
there's
know,
still
and-
people out
but
there.
it- Well,
that
money's
have
tight, so they have every right, and it's very valid to feel panicked.
And it's
give us a
still
call.
high, even if you're saving money there, it's a crazy amount, you know?
It is,
So-
it is. So anyway, just wanted to mention that, and basically that completes my town administrator report for tonight.
All right, well then, we shall, we will move to executive session. I will entertain a motion. We will not be returning to open session. To enter executive session pursuant to open meeting law, chapter 30A, section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Litigation discussions, highway and administrative union. And executive session pursuant to open meeting law, chapter 30A, section 21A7, to review and approve executive session minutes not to be released July 16th, 2024. I will entertain that motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much, and we will not be returning to open session.